Hello everyone! In this video I'm going to be showing you some of the new powerful longsword builds that we can now make in Title Update 3, thanks to Archshepherd Nu'Udra and his Gamma armor. The armor set is honestly very powerful across the board for all of the weapons, but in the case of longsword the head and chest are especially noteworthy. The head has 3 levels of burst on it along with 3 level 1 slots, so if you're going for a build with max burst, which can be pretty good for elemental builds, then you can get 3 burst and 3 quick sheath right here from just the helmet. Quite powerful indeed. But the chest is where the real upgrades are happening. This chest piece allows you to get 2 counter strike and 2 of basically any other armor skill that you want, which is insane efficiency and makes it optimal for just about every mixed set, especially when you factor in that the Nu'Udra Gamma pieces also contribute to Lord's Soul as well. So then, I'm going to be showcasing a few different specialized longsword builds. We're going to have everyone's favorite standard raw damage set, of course. Another set that is a bit more element focused and can outperform the first set in some situations. A resonance based set that is a bit more optimized for group play and will outperform the other two in multiplayer. As well as a tank set that will allow you to use the Blackest Knight to counter even some of the most devastating attacks. So lots of builds, and in addition to that, all of the sets will have perfect charm and craftable charm variants, so you can have fun with any of these sets. Starting off, we have the new standard raw damage set, which you can make by utilizing the Raidao Gamma Head, Nu'Udra Gamma Chest, Omega Arms, Raidao Gamma Waist, Uthduna Gamma Legs, and this amazing charm. Along with 3 throttle, 2 protection, 1 challenger, 1 counter attack, and 1 attack jewel. Now it's important to note that while this build is great for just about all the content in the game, it's ideally best used in a solo scenario where you aren't using support hunters. If you are fighting something that is particularly weak to element, or just find yourself playing in a group more often than not, you will probably get more value out of one of the sets coming later in this video. But with that said, let's go over the actual math behind the set. First, we have to take our base raw of 225 and add our 7% multiplier from attack boost and guts, which will give us 240. Then we add up all the skills to give us a flat attack increase, which puts us at 300. Multiply that by white sharpness and that becomes 396. So when we account for our affinity and critical boost, that becomes a total of 527 EFR. But for those of you who have terrible luck with charms, I have also made a craftable charm variant. We are once again going to be using the Raidao Gamma Head, Nu'Udra Gamma Chest, Omega Arms, Raidao Gamma Waist, and Uthduna Gamma Legs, but this time with the Power Charm 3 instead. You will also need 3 Challenger, 2 Protection, 1 Chain, 1 Counter, and 1 Counter Attack Jewel. When utilizing these decorations, you will end up with a build that is only very slightly weaker than that of one with a perfect charm. In fact, the only difference between them is that you will lose attack boost 4, but gain the last 2 points of agitator, which is almost enough to make up the damage gap between the two entirely. When looking at the math behind this set, we again have to take our 225 base raw and multiply for guts, which ends up giving us 236. Once we add up all the flat damage skills, that becomes 294. Then when we take into account the white sharpness modifier, it's 388. So once we factor in our affinity and critical boost, that becomes a total of 522 EFR. Moving on to the next build, we have something a little different, that being mostly a raw build, but with a lot more elemental attack than a standard one. To make this build, you will need the Nu'Udra Gamma Head, Nu'Udra Gamma Chest, Raidao Beta Arms, Raidao Gamma Waist, Zoshia Beta Legs, and everyone's favorite charm. Along with 3 Sheath, 1 Throttle, 1 Challenger, 1 Mighty, 1 Chain, 1 Counter Attack, and 1 Attack Jewel. Now, like the first build, I would personally use this set in a solo scenario the majority of the time, but its main purpose is to do additional elemental damage to monsters that have mediocre or bad raw hit zones, but great elemental hit zones. An extreme example of that would be something like Gravios' Belly, which takes minimal damage from raw until it becomes broken, but always takes an insane amount of water damage. Though this set isn't just for Gravios, it's honestly great for a lot of the element weak monsters because it has almost as much raw as the first build, but over 33% more elemental damage thanks to burst and elemental absorption. But with that said, let's look at the math. 225 base raw, and 7% more for attack boost and guts, which gives us 240. When adding all the flat damage skills on top of that, we get 304. Then with the white sharpness modifier, that becomes 402. So once we factor in affinity and critical boost, we get a total of 518 EFR, which is only about 2% less raw than the standard raw set, but with 33% more elements. For the craftable charm variants of the elements set, most of the gear is going to be the same but not identical. So to make it, you're going to need the Nu'uja Gamma head, Nu'uja Gamma chest, Raydao Gamma arms, Raydao Gamma waist, Xoxia Beta legs, and the Power Charm 3, as well as 3 sheath, 2 challenger, 2 chain, 1 mighty, and 1 counter attack jewel. When combined with these decorations, you will get a build that is once again only slightly weaker than that of what you would have with a perfect charm, the main difference being that we again lose attack boost 4 and gain 1 additional point of agitator. For the math behind this set, we again have 225 base raw, and we get 5% more from guts, putting us at 236. Then we get a bunch more from all of our flat damage skills, boosting us up to 295. So once you put that through the white sharpness modifier, it becomes 389. When accounting for affinity and critical boost, that gives us a total of 504 EFR, while of course still maintaining that 33% more elemental damage advantage over the standard raw sets. Moving on to the resonance build, we have my personal favorite and the build I recommend most people use if you are actually looking to play multiplayer. So to make this, you're going to need the Omega head, Raydao Gamma chest, Omega arms, Raydao Gamma waist, Uthduna Gamma legs, and this fancy charm, along with 3 counter, 1 mighty, 1 protection, 1 counter attack, 1 shockproof, and 1 attack jewel. Now the reason I recommend that most people use this build is because it uses 2 pieces of Omega armor, which gives us the Resonance set bonus. If you don't know, Resonance actually allows you to buff your entire party's attack and affinity, including yourself, by a pretty respectable amount. So not only will it buff your own damage, you'll be passing that luxury on to the rest of your team as well. Getting into the math on this one, we have 225 base raw, increased by 7% for attack boost and guts, which is 240. The flat damage skills then bring that up to 300, which when multiplied by white sharpness becomes 396. So once we have accounted for affinity and critical boost, that puts this set at a total of 536 EFR, which also happens to be the highest in this video. Once again, the craftable charm variant will use most of the same gear but not identically, so for this version of the set you will need the Omega head, the Nu'uja Gamma chest, Omega arms, Raydao Gamma waist, Uthduna Gamma legs, and the Power Charm 3, as well as 3 challenger, 1 chain, 1 counter, 1 mighty, 1 protection, 1 counter attack, and 1 shockproof jewel, which when slotted with these decorations will result in a build that is only marginally weaker than the one with a perfect charm. The difference on this one is going to be that we of course lose attack boost 4, but gain an entire 3 levels of agitator, maxing out the skill. The math on this one is going to be 225 base raw, add 5% more for guts, which brings us to 236. Add all the flat damage skills up, and that becomes 291, which with a white sharpness modifier turns into 384. So once we have accounted for affinity and critical boost, this set ends up with a very respectable total of 521 EFR. As for the last build, we have the tank set with the Blackest Night, which will allow you to counter even the most devastating attacks in a pinch. To make this one, you're going to need the Bale head, Bale chest, Bale arms, Xoxia Beta waist, Bale legs, and a wonderful charm. For this one, it's going to be 3 counter, 1 counter attack, 1 sheath, and 1 shockproof jewel. Now while this set is primarily a tank set for people who want to have a bit more survivability in their day-to-day hunts, I have also included shockproof just in case you want to use this in multiplayer as well. The math behind this one is going to be 225 base raw, increased by 2% for attack boost, which is 229, which once we add up the damage skills is going to turn into 290. Multiplied by white sharpness, and that's 383. So once we account for affinity and critical boost, we get a total of 496 EFR, which is definitely a reasonably high amount, considering this set has the potential to double your defense most of the time. For the craftable charm variant of the set, we are going to be using the same bale pieces, because we do need 4 of them for the set bonus, but we will be changing the waist, so in total you will need the bale head, bale chest, bale arms, omega waist, bale legs, and the challenger charm too. The decorations for this one include 3 counter, 1 challenger, 1 counter attack, 1 sheath, and 1 shockproof jewel. Once again, the difference between having a perfect charm and a craftable one isn't too major, but this time around it will be a slight bit more noticeable due to the difference here being losing attack boost and only gaining 1 point of agitator in return. This time it's going to be 225 base raw plus our flat damage skills, which is 281. Multiply that by white sharpness and we get 370, which after we account for affinity and critical boost becomes a total of 482 EFR. So those are the best longsword builds you should be using post Arc-Tempered Udra. Hopefully you found something that you like and can actually make. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and consider joining my Discord server at the same time. All of my builds get uploaded there first, so it's basically early access. But with that said, I'll see you in the next video.